If you want to stay with me, you want me to accept you, you'll get rid of that thing in your belly. The words, cold and flat, hit Cyria with the force of a physical blow. She stood frozen in the doorway of their modest apartment, the grocery bag she was holding slipping from her numb fingers. A single can of soup rolled across the scuffed wooden floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the ringing silence. Liam stood by the window, his broad back to her, silhouetted against the neon signs of the city below. He didn't even turn to face her. "Liam," she whispered, her voice trembling. What did you say?" Finally he turned. His handsome face, the one she had traced with her fingers 1,000 times, was a mask of cold resolution. His eyes, usually warm with amber light, were like chips of flint. They dropped to her stomach, and his lip curled in a disdain she had never seen directed at her before. "The pregnancy. You'll terminate it," he stated, as if discussing a business transaction. "I will not let an Omega have my pup. It's a complication I don't need." Tears welled in Cyria's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had been so foolish. 4 weeks she had watched him pull away, his attention consumed by Alara, his first love from the powerful nightfang pack who had slinked back into his life. Cyria had cooked his favorite meals, had worn the dress he liked, had tried to remind him of the love they once shared. She had thought this child, this miracle growing inside her, would be the bridge back to that love. He was wrong. It wasn't a bridge. It was an obstacle he was ready to demolish. A complication? The words were a broken sob. "This is our child. A blessing from the moon goddess. How can you—" "Don't speak to me of the goddess," he snapped, finally taking a step toward her, his alpha aura pressing down on her, making her feel small. "This is about reality, Cyria. My reality. Alara's father has offered me a formal alliance. A merger of our packs. It will make the Darkfang pack stronger than it's ever been. But it requires a mating bond. It requires me to mate with her." He said the name with a reverence he hadn't used for Cyria in months. "Where does that leave me?" Cyria asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Where does that leave our pup?" He had the decency to look away for a moment, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "It leaves you with a choice. You can end the pregnancy and remain here with me. Not as my mate but as mine. In secret." The audacity of the offer stole her breath. He expected her to destroy their child and become his hidden mistress while he built a public life with another woman. "And if I refuse?" she asked, a strange, cold stillness beginning to settle over her shattered heart. His eyes met hers, and the last flicker of the man she loved died in their cold depths. "Then you leave. Tonight. And you take that burden. But understand this, Cyria." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. "If you go, you are dead to me. You will get nothing. And you will never, ever use that pup to try and claim anything from me. It is not my heir. It is nothing." In that moment, staring into the face of the man who had once vowed to cherish her under the full moon, Cyria saw the truth. There was no love left here. There was only ambition and a cruel, selfish pride. The last thread of her hope snapped. Without a word, she turned away from him. She didn't look at the home they had built together. She didn't grab a coat or the few sentimental trinkets she owned. She simply walked to the door, stepped over the spilled groceries, and walked out into the cold night air, leaving the ghost of their love and the man she thought she knew behind forever. The city air, thick with exhaust and the scent of countless strangers, was a physical assault after the confined misery of Liam's apartment. Cyria walked, her body moving on an autopilot of pure survival. The cold seeped through her thin jacket, but it was nothing compared to the glacial void spreading from her chest. Liam's words echoed, a toxic mantra. "I will not let an Omega have my pup. It is nothing." Each step away from him felt like tearing a part of her own soul out. But with each step the part that remained grew harder, colder. The tears that had threatened to fall finally did, tracing hot, silent paths down her cheeks before freezing in the night air. They were not tears of weakness, but of a final, searing purification. She was crying for the naive girl she had been, the one who believed love could conquer all. That girl was dead, left behind in that kitchen with the spilled groceries and shattered dreams. She walked until her feet ached, finding herself in a desolate, neon-lit park. Under the skeletal branches of a tree, she finally stopped, her breath misting in the air. She placed a trembling hand on her stomach. He is wrong, she whispered into the darkness, her voice raw but firm. You are not a burden. You are not nothing. You are everything. A fierce, primal protectiveness surged through her, burning away the last of her grief. She had no one. Nothing. Liam had seen to that. There was only one place left to go. The place she had sworn never to return to. With a resolve she didn't know she possessed, she walked to a payphone, her fingers numb as she dialed a number she had memorized as a child but had tried so hard to forget. It rang once. Twice. A deep, gravelly voice answered. Yes. Kaelin, she said, her voice trembling only slightly. It's Cyria. There was a stunned silence on the other end, followed by a sharp, choked breath. Little Moon? Cyria, by the goddess, where are you? Are you safe? Hearing her childhood nickname, spoken with such undisguised worry and love, was almost her undoing. No, she admitted, the word a sob. I'm not. I need to come home. Give me your location. Do not move. I'm sending a car. Now. The line went dead, the authority in his tone leaving no room for argument. Less than 20 minutes later, a sleek, black luxury sedan, silent and imposing, pulled up to the curb. A warrior in dark, modern tactical gear emblazoned with a subtle silver wolf's head emblem stepped out. He bowed his head deeply. Lady Cyria. Your father sent me. The title, after so long being just Cyria, or worse, that Omega, felt alien. She merely nodded, allowing him to open the door for her. The interior was warm and smelled of leather and pine. As the car pulled away, she watched the grim, ordinary world of her past life slide away, replaced by the shimmering skyline of the city's powerful core. They drove through towering gates and down a long, private road, finally arriving at a structure that was less a house and more a citadel. It was a masterpiece of modern architecture fused with ancient, fortified elegance. Soaring glass walls backed by stone that had stood for centuries. This was the heart of the Silvermane pack. Her birthright. The grand doors swung open as she approached. And there, in the vast, gleaming foyer, stood her father, Alpha Theron Silvermane. He looked older, the lines on his face deeper, but his eyes, the same shade of storm gray as her own, held a universe of relief and pain. Beside him was Kaelin, her father's head of security and her own personal guardian since childhood, his stern face softened with emotion. Cyria, her father breathed, his voice thick. She didn't run into his arms. She stood her ground, the wounded, proud core of her holding her upright. He cast me out, she said, her voice clear and cold, carrying through the hall. I am with child. His child. And he told me to get rid of it or be nothing. A low, dangerous growl rumbled in her father's chest, a sound of pure, undiluted fury. The very air in the foyer seemed to crackle with his power. Kaelin took an involuntary step forward, his hands clenching into fists. I will have his head for this, Alpha Theron snarled, his alpha aura flooding the space. I will tear his pack apart with my bare hands. No, Cyria said, and the word held a new, steely authority. She looked from her father to Kaelin, her gaze unwavering. That is not what I want. She took a deep breath, finally allowing her shoulders to straighten, to reclaim the posture of the heir she was born to be. I want you to teach me, she declared. Not just to be safe. Not just to be protected. I want you to teach me to be powerful. To be ruthless. I will learn everything about strategy, finance, and combat. I will become the alpha I was always meant to be. Her hand rested on her stomach. For me. And for my child. She finally took a step forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but now they were tears of grim determination. And I want you to sever all the anonymous financial aid we've been funneling to the Darkfang pack. Every single credit. Let him feel what it's like to have his support system ripped away. Let him fall. And when he does, she finished, her voice dropping to a whisper that was more terrifying than a shout, I will be the one to watch. Alpha Theron looked at his daughter. Truly looked at her. He saw the broken girl, but he also saw the formidable woman rising from the ashes of her old life. A fierce, proud smile touched his lips. Welcome home, Cyria, he said, his voice full of grim promise. Your training begins tomorrow. The Silvermane Citadel was no longer a place of painful memories, but a crucible. In the 5 years since her return, Cyria had not merely healed, she had been reforged. The softness of the girl who had loved Liam was honed into the razor-sharp edge of the Silvermane heir. Her days were a grueling tapestry of discipline and power. Her mornings began before dawn in the state-of-the-art training grounds, where the scent of polished steel and damp earth replaced the city smog. Under Kaelin's watchful eye, she learned to channel not just her Omega's empathy, but a latent, ferocious power that had been suppressed for years. She traded gentle touches for the jarring impact of a practiced sword, her movements becoming a lethal dance of grace and strength. "My daughter," Kaelin would grunt, deflecting a swift strike, "hits harder than you did at her age, Theron." From the viewing platform, Alpha Theron would watch, his chest swelling with a pride that eclipsed his enduring rage. In the financial war room, surrounded by holographic displays of pack assets and global markets, Cyria proved to be a natural strategist. She had an intuitive understanding of leverage and consequence, perhaps born from the ultimate personal lesson in both. She learned to wield the Silvermane wealth not as a blunt instrument, but as a precise scalpel, capable of building empires or severing vital arteries. And through it all there was Leah. Her daughter was the sun around which Cyria's new world orbited. Leah was a vibrant, happy child, her laughter echoing through the Citadel's grand halls. She had her mother's storm-gray eyes, but a fearless, curious spirit that was entirely her own. She was doted on by her grandfather and unwaveringly protected by Kaelin, who had appointed himself her unofficial guardian. Leah knew she was loved, she knew she was safe, and she was growing up knowing her mother was the strongest person in the world. It was during a strategy session about territorial disputes that Alpha Theron broached the subject he'd been carefully avoiding. "The Blood Moon Pack," he said, pointing to a territory on the holographic map that bordered their own. "Their Alpha Alex is modernizing their forces. He's shrewd, honorable, and powerful. An alliance with him would make us unassailable." Cyria looked up from the data stream, her expression neutral. "I've read the briefs. His record is impressive. He doesn't rely on outdated hierarchies. He values competence above bloodline." There was a subtle note of approval in her voice. "He has requested a meeting," her father said carefully, "to discuss mutual interests." Cyria knew what this was. A political courtship. Once the idea would have revolted her. Now she saw the logic, the strength in a union built on respect and shared power, not fleeting passion. She thought of Leah, of the legacy she was building for her daughter. "Set the meeting," Cyria said, her tone leaving no room for debate. "I will meet him." The meeting took place in a neutral location, a sleek conference center overlooking the city. Cyria did not arrive as a supplicant or a prize. She arrived as an equal, dressed in the elegant, warrior-inspired garb of the Silvermane heir, her posture radiating authority. Alpha Alex was not what she expected. He was tall and powerfully built, but his energy was contained, thoughtful. His gaze was direct and intelligent, assessing her not for her beauty but for her mind. He stood and offered a slight, respectful bow of his head. "Lady Cyria," he said, his voice a calm, resonant baritone. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Alpha Alex," she replied, taking the seat opposite him. "The Blood Moon Pack's recent economic reforms are ambitious." A faint smile touched his lips. "And the Silvermane diversification into renewable energy is visionary. It seems we both believe a pack's strength is more than its number of warriors." The conversation flowed not as a negotiation but as a meeting of minds. They spoke of trade routes, security, and the challenges of leading in a world straddling ancient tradition and modern reality. He listened to her opinions, debated points with respect, and conceded when she made a better argument. He treated her as a partner. As the meeting concluded, Alex rose. "It has been a genuine pleasure, Cyria. I would be very interested in continuing this dialogue. Perhaps a tour of the Blood Moon territory next week? You could bring your daughter. I hear the northern woods are beautiful this time of year." The mention of Leah was a test. He was acknowledging the most important part of her life, not as a complication but as a part of the whole package. It was a stark, breathtaking contrast to the man who had demanded she erase her child for his convenience. Cyria felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years, not the dizzying, fragile love she'd had for Liam, but the steady, warm ember of hope. Hope for a partnership. For a future. She met his gaze, and for the first time in 5 years, a genuine, uncalculated smile graced her lips. We would like that very much, Alex. Thank you. Back in the Silvermane car, heading home to her daughter, Cyria looked at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back was powerful, poised, and in control. The ghost of Liam Darkfang had no place here. He was a relic of a past life, a lesson learned. And she was ready to write her future. The Grand Interpack Gala was the social event of the season, a glittering fusion of old and new. Ancient, hand-embroidered silks brushed against designer business suits. The air hummed with conversation and the clink of glasses, underpinned by the subtle thrum of powerful wolves in close quarters. Cyria Silvermane stood near a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, a picture of cool elegance. She wore a gown of midnight blue, its sleek, modern lines accentuated by silver pauldrons etched with her pack sigil, a deliberate statement of her dual identity as heiress and warrior. At her side, Alpha Alex was a steady, formidable presence in a tailored dark suit. Their partnership, once a matter of political discussion, had deepened into a comfortable public alliance. The way his hand rested lightly on the small of her back was both possessive and respectful, a silent claim that she welcomed. It was there amidst the opulence that Liam Darkfang saw her. His own pack's finances were a house of cards, trembling on the verge of collapse. The anonymous benefactor had vanished years ago, and his desperate alliance with Alara's pack had proven brittle, built on sand. He was here to beg, to network, to find any shred of salvation. And then he saw Cyria. For a moment he didn't recognize her. This woman was radiant, poised, and exuded a power that made the air around her seem charged. Then their eyes met, and the shock of recognition was a physical jolt. It was her. His Cyria. The Omega heat cast aside. A slow, smug smile spread across his face. So she had come back. She had heard of his struggles, of his elevated status as Alpha, and had come to this, the most prestigious of gatherings, to find him. Her aloof posture, her distance, it was all a game. A calculated play to stoke his interest, to make him chase. She was trying to regain the power she'd lost when she left. Fueled by this arrogant certainty, he strode across the ballroom, ignoring the subtle glances of others. He inserted himself into her conversation with Alex, his voice dripping with condescending familiarity. Cyria. I should have known I'd find you here. Cyria turned, and the look in her storm-gray eyes was not the warmth or hope he expected. It was the chilling flatness of a frozen lake. Liam, she acknowledged, her tone devoid of all emotion. Undeterred, he pressed on, puffing his chest slightly. Trying to make me jealous, little Omega? I have to admit, it's a bold strategy showing up at a place like this. His eyes flicked dismissively to Alex. And who's this? Your latest attempt at a rebound. Alex didn't react with anger. A faint, almost pitying smile touched his lips. He simply watched, a predator observing a foolish creature stumble into its territory. Cyria's response was a blade sheathed in ice. You are interrupting a private conversation, Alpha Darkfang. I suggest you move along. The use of his formal title was a slap. But Liam, blinded by his delusion, only saw it as part of her act. His smile turned nastier, possessive. Still playing hard to get. Fine. We'll talk later. When you're done with this. He gestured vaguely at Alex. He turned to leave, but the final blow to his fragile ego came a moment later. He glanced back and saw Cyria lean in close to Alex, her hand coming to rest on his arm as she whispered something that made the powerful Alpha smile. A genuine warm smile. A bolt of pure irrational jealousy seared through Liam. She was his. Her attention, her smiles, they belonged to him. He stalked away, his mind racing. She was trying to punish him, to make him work for it. But he would have her back. He just needed to remind her of what they'd had. And that child, the one she'd kept. The girl. She was the key. A child needed its father. He would use that. He would get his Omega back, and with her, perhaps, a flicker of the luck that had once seemed to follow him. The Council of Alphas was a somber affair, held in a stark modern chamber of steel and dark wood. It was here that territorial disputes and pack finances were laid bare. Liam sat, his posture rigid, as Alpha after Alpha presented their ledgers. The air was thick with the scent of old power and new anxiety. His own turn came. He stood, projecting a confidence he didn't feel, outlining the temporary setbacks of the Darkfang pack. He spoke of external market pressures, of bad investments, carefully omitting the fact that their mysterious, life-saving financial stream had dried up 5 years ago. An elderly alpha from a mountain pack grunted. A pity. You were doing so well for a time. It was the anonymous Silvermane investments that propped you up, weren't they? A shame they withdrew their support. The words landed like a physical blow. Liam froze. Silvermane. The most powerful, most reclusive pack on the continent. Their wealth was legendary. Why would they have ever supported him? And why stop? His confusion must have been plain on his face, for the alpha continued. You didn't know? Ah yes. It was a private arrangement. Orchestrated by the former alpha's daughter herself, before she disappeared from public view. A cold dread began to creep up Liam's spine. A daughter who disappeared. A timeline that matched perfectly. His eyes, wide with dawning horror, swept across the council table and landed on the one who had been silent the entire time. Alpha Theron Silvermane. Theron stood. His presence commanded the room, his storm-gray eyes pinning Liam in place. There was no private arrangement. Theron's voice boomed, cold and clear. It was not a business decision. It was a gift. From my daughter to the wolf she foolishly believed loved her. A gift she bestowed in secret, while living in squalor, hiding her identity as an omega to protect his fragile pride. The chamber was utterly silent. Theron's gaze was a physical weight. The support was withdrawn the night you looked at your pregnant mate, my daughter, and told her to abort her child or be nothing. The night you cast out Cyria Silvermane. The name echoed in the dead silence. Cyria Silvermane. The world tilted on its axis. The modest apartment, her gentle demeanor, her unwavering support. It hadn't been the devotion of a low-born omega. It had been a princess slumming it. And he had thrown her away. He had thrown away the key to the greatest power and wealth imaginable. He saw her then, standing gracefully in the doorway of the council chamber, having entered silently. She was dressed not in a gown, but in the sharp, tailored lines of a Silvermane executive, her hair swept back, her expression one of icy, detached observation. He had heard it all. The council erupted into murmurs. Shame, fury, and a desperate, clawing greed warred within Liam. He stumbled from the chamber, his mind reeling, and found her in the antechamber, preparing to leave. Cyria, he called out, his voice strangled. She turned, her gaze as impersonal as a glacier. It's a lie, he gasped, though he knew it wasn't. This can't be true. Cyria, my love, remember what we had? Our bond was real. This power, this act, it isn't you. Come back to me. We can be together now. Properly. He was groveling and he hated it, but the magnitude of his mistake was suffocating. Cyria didn't even flinch. The bond was severed the moment you called our child a burden, she stated, her voice devoid of all feeling. There is nothing for you here, Liam. You are a chapter 1 closed 5 years ago. The finality in her tone broke the last of his control. The gaslighting hadn't worked. The begging had failed. Panic and a twisted sense of entitlement surged forth. Fine, he snarled, his mask of remorse shattering to reveal the ugliness beneath. If you won't come willingly, then I'll take my daughter. She is my blood, my heir. The pack laws grant me that right. You can either lose her forever or you can return to my side with her. Your choice. He saw it then, a flicker of pure, undiluted terror in her eyes before the icy mask slammed back down. It was the reaction he wanted. He had a weapon. He had finally hit a nerve. But before Cyria could respond, a calm, authoritative voice cut through the tension. That won't be possible. Alpha Alex stepped from the shadows where he had been listening, his presence a solid wall of calm authority. He moved to stand beside Cyria, a pillar of support. Your daughter, Alex said, his words precise and final, is legally and ritually adopted. She is Leah Silvermane of the Blood Moon Pack. She is under my protection. Your claim is null and void. The ground fell out from under Liam for the second time that day. He had been outmaneuvered utterly and completely. He was left standing there, exposed as a fool, a failure, and a monster, with nothing but the crumbling ruins of his own pride. The fallout from the council meeting was absolute. Whispers and scornful glances followed Liam through the gilded halls. He retreated to a secluded balcony, the cool night air doing nothing to cool the feverish humiliation burning through him. He had been publicly unmasked as both a fool and a tyrant. "Liam? I heard what happened. Are you all right?" The voice was soft, laced with a carefully crafted concern. Ilara glided toward him, a vision of sympathetic beauty. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "That was terribly unfair of them. And for Cyria to hide who she was all that time, it was a cruel trick to play on you." This was the narrative Liam's reeling mind desperately needed. He latched onto it. "A trick," he repeated, the word a bomb. "She set me up for failure." "Of course she did," Ilara murmured, her eyes wide and sincere. "She let you believe she was nothing, just waiting for you to stumble so she could watch you fall. It's vengeful and petty." She sighed, a delicate sound. "I always feared she wasn't the simple Omega she seemed." There was a cunning in her eyes. Liam's fists clenched. He remembered Cyria's quiet support, her insightful suggestions about pack management, suggestions he now realized had been brilliant, and which he had often dismissed. Ilara had been the one to caution him against listening to an Omega's advice. "An alpha leads, my love. He doesn't take counsel from the lowest among us. It undermines your authority." He saw now how her words had isolated him, making him reject the very help that could have saved him. "What do I do now?" The question was torn from him, a plea to the one person he thought was still on his side. Ilara's expression turned thoughtful, her manipulation hidden under a mask of loyal strategizing. "The council won't help you. But the old ways, the right of contest, still hold weight. You are her true mate, the father of her child. You have a primal claim that this Alex cannot erase. Challenge him." Liam's pride, battered but not broken, flared at the idea. "For Cyria?" "Not for her," Ilara corrected swiftly, her voice hardening. "For your honor. For your daughter. He has stolen what is rightfully yours. He paraded your humiliation before the entire assembly. An alpha does not let such an insult stand. You must demand satisfaction. When you defeat him, you prove his claim is weak and yours is absolute. The packs will respect strength, even in defeat. It's your only path to reclaiming your dignity." It was a poison arrow, expertly aimed at his deepest insecurities. She framed a suicidal act of pride as his only noble option. She wasn't guiding him to victory. She was guiding him to a spectacular, final downfall, removing the man who had spurned her and ensuring Cyria's new alliance was born from a bloody, public scandal. Back in their suite, Alex was watching Cyria with quiet intensity. She stood by the window, the calm from the antechamber gone, her body trembling with residual fear and fury. "He threatened Leah," she whispered, the words laced with a mother's terror. "He did," Alex acknowledged, his voice steady. "And he will use the most archaic of our laws to try and back that threat. He will challenge me." Cyria turned to him, her gray eyes stormy. "You can't. It's what he wants. It's a barbaric tradition." "It is," Alex agreed, coming to stand before her. He didn't touch her, simply offered his unwavering presence. "But it is also a tool. And tools can be wielded by either side." A shrewd, calculating light entered his eyes. "He will invoke the right for mate and child. The challenged has the right to set the terms." Understanding dawned on Cyria's face. "The terms." A slow, determined smile touched Alex's lips. "He expects a duel. One alpha against another, brute force against brute force. But we are not just alphas, Cyria. We are partners. Let him challenge for a family. And let that family defend itself. Together." The plan crystallized between them, a seamless meeting of minds. It was no longer just about defeating Liam. It was about annihilating his entire worldview. It was about proving that the union he had thrown away was not just emotionally stronger, but militarily superior. The formal challenge came an hour later, delivered on a scrap of ancient parchment, just as Alex had predicted. Liam, his ego stoked by Ilara's venom, demanded the right of contest for the theft of his mate and child. Alex's acceptance was delivered publicly, his voice carrying through the assembled packs who had gathered, sensing the impending storm. "I accept your challenge, Liam Darkfang," Alex declared. "But you challenge for my family. And in the Blood Moon Pack we do not send one to fight for the whole. We fight together." He looked to Cyria, who stepped forward, her chin held high, her gaze locked on Liam with icy contempt. "The terms are a pair's duel," Alex announced, the words ringing with finality. My Luna and I, against you and a champion of your choosing. Let the moon goddess judge which bond is true. The silence in the room was deafening. A pair's duel was almost unheard of, a test not just of strength but of synergy, trust, and unity. Liam stood frozen, Ilara's smug confidence fading from her face as she realized her plan had just been twisted into a trap. He had not challenged a rival, he had challenged a fortress. And he was about to learn that its walls were unbreakable. The air in the ancient dueling grounds was thick with tension and the scent of damp earth. The space was a stark contrast to the modern gala, a circle of weathered stone under the open sky, lit by torches that cast long, dancing shadows. Pack members from all alliances formed a silent, watchful ring, their collective breath held. Liam stood at one edge of the circle, his beta Garrick at his side. Garrick was a hulking, loyal wolf, all brute force and unwavering obedience. Liam's plan was simple and direct. He would engage Alex, trusting his own raw strength and fury to overwhelm the Blood Moon Alpha, while Garrick subdued Cyria. He still couldn't conceive of her as a real threat. She was a political player, a strategist, not a warrior. At the opposite side stood Cyria and Alex. They had changed into practical, reinforced combat gear. Alex stood with a calm, grounded readiness. But it was Cyria who drew every eye. Her posture was not one of defensive fear, but of lethal, poised anticipation. She moved through a series of fluid stretches, her gaze fixed on Liam with an unnerving stillness. An elder stood in the center. The right of contest is invoked. Let the bonds be tested. Begin. The fight erupted. Liam, as predicted, let out a roar and charged directly at Alex, his form already beginning to blur as he called on his wolf. Alex met the charge not with a roar, but with a focused silence, his movements economical and precise. Their clash was a thunderous impact of muscle and will. As planned, Garrick lunged for Cyria, his massive hand reaching to grab her arm and subdue her. But Cyria didn't retreat. She flowed into his movement. Using his own momentum, she twisted, her body a lever, and threw the much larger beta over her hip. He landed with a grunt of shock on the hard stone. A ripple of astonishment went through the crowd. Garrick scrambled to his feet, anger replacing condescension. He came at her again, swiping a powerful arm meant to crush her ribs. Cyria dropped low, the strike passing harmlessly over her head, and swept her leg, knocking his feet from under him a second time. She wasn't just dodging, she was systematically dismantling him, using his size and aggression against him. Her style was a graceful, brutal dance of martial precision, a stark contrast to the straightforward brawling of the Darkfang wolves. Meanwhile, Liam was failing against Alex. His wild, furious attacks were deftly parried and countered. Alex was like a mountain, unmoved by the storm of Liam's rage. With a powerful, disorienting shove, Alex threw Liam backward, stumbling directly into Cyria's path. Seeing his alpha in trouble, Garrick ignored Cyria and launched himself at Alex's exposed back. Alex, behind you! Cyria called out, her voice clear and sharp. In that same instant, she didn't wait for Alex to react. As Liam staggered to his feet in front of her, disoriented, she delivered a spinning kick to his jaw. It wasn't a fight-ending blow, but a stunning, humiliating slap. It snapped his head back and sent him reeling again. Simultaneously, Alex, warned by her cry, dropped and swept his leg, taking Garrick's feet out from under him just as the beta leaped. Garrick crashed to the ground, the wind knocked out of him. The synchronized move was flawless. It wasn't two individuals fighting separately. It was a single unit operating on perfect trust and communication. Panting, his lip bleeding from Cyria's kick, Liam stared in shattered disbelief. The Omega had not only held her own, she had struck him. She had coordinated with her new mate as if they shared one mind. With a final, guttural roar of humiliation, Liam shifted fully into his massive, dark-furred wolf. Garrick, following his alpha's lead, did the same. The fight was escalating to its most primal level. Alex and Cyria shared a single look, a look of complete understanding. They didn't need words. As one, they allowed their own shifts to take them. Where Liam's shift was a burst of angry, chaotic energy, theirs was a terrifyingly seamless transformation. Alex's wolf was a giant of midnight black and russet red, power radiating from him in waves. And Cyria, her wolf was a revelation. She was a creature of sleek silver and storm gray, smaller than the males but built of pure, coiled muscle and deadly grace. Her eyes glowed with the same icy fire as her human form. The two massive Darkfang wolves charged. Alex met Liam's charge head-on, a colossal clash of alpha power. But this time Cyria didn't hang back. As Garrick tried to flank Alex, the silver wolf moved with blinding speed. She was a phantom, darting in, her fangs slicing at Garrick's hamstring before he could even react. He yelped in pain and stumbled, his attack faltering. Liam, locked in a struggle with Alex, saw the opening he needed. He tried to twist and sink his fangs into Alex's shoulder. But before he could, a silver blur shot past. Cyria didn't attack Liam directly. Instead, she slammed her body into his back legs, unbalancing him at the critical moment. His lunge missed. Alex took immediate advantage, his powerful jaws clamping down on Liam's foreleg with a sickening crunch. Liam howled in agony. Helpless, Liam watched as Alex then turned and, with a single powerful swipe of his paw, sent the already injured Garrick flying into the stone wall of the dueling grounds. The beta slid to the ground, unconscious. It was over. Liam lay on the cold stone, his leg broken, his beta defeated, his pride in tatters. Above him stood Alex and Cyria, in their powerful wolf forms side by side. Alex placed a protective paw on Liam's chest, not to crush him, but to pin him in final, undeniable defeat. Cyria took a step forward, her silver muzzle close to his face. Her storm-gray eyes held not hatred, but a final, profound pity. She let out a soft, dismissive chuff of air, the wolf equivalent of the scornful laugh she had given him in the antechamber. The message was clear. They hadn't just beaten him. They had proven that his vision of power, solitary, brutish, and selfish, was obsolete. True power was this: partnership, trust, and unity. He had lost far more than a fight. He had lost his very reason for being. The only sound in the dueling grounds was Liam's ragged panting and the crackle of torches. The weight of Alex's paw on his chest was less a physical restraint and more the crushing weight of his own failure. He shifted back to his human form, the transformation agonizing with his broken leg. The cold stone seeped into his bare skin, a final indignity. Alex and Cyria shifted back as well, standing over him, not as conquerors gloating but as judges delivering a verdict. The assembled packs watched in absolute silence, the outcome resonating deeper than a simple victory. It was then that Alara pushed her way to the front of the crowd. Her face was a mask of fury and disgust, but not for Cyria or Alex, for him. "You pathetic worm," she spat, her voice cutting through the silence. All pretense of gentle concern was gone, stripped away to reveal the viper beneath. "I gave you a clear path. I fed you the strategy and you still couldn't manage it. You were always a means to an end, a tool to weaken my father's rivals. I thought you had at least some spine. I was wrong." She turned her back on him, addressing the surrounding alphas with a dismissive flick of her wrist. "The Nightfang pack severs all ties with the Darkfang pack, effective immediately. We have no alliance with failures." With that she strode away, leaving him lying in the dirt, publicly discarded by his last remaining ally. The humiliation was complete. But the true face slap was yet to come. Alpha Theron Silvermane stepped into the circle, his presence radiating finality. He didn't even look at Liam, instead addressing the council elders present. "Liam Darkfang has proven himself unfit to lead." Theron's voice boomed, devoid of anger, filled only with cold, hard fact. "He has shown a catastrophic lack of judgment, a failure to protect his pack's interests, and a dishonorable character by threatening the well-being of a child. The Silvermane pack moves to strip him of his title immediately." A chorus of ayes echoed from the other alphas. It was unanimous. In the space of minutes, Liam had lost the duel, his ally, and his title. It was Cyria who spoke next, her voice calm and clear, carrying to every ear. She looked down at him, and for the first time, there was no pity in her gaze, only a clean, surgical finality. "You thought my daughter was a tool for your legacy," she said. "You thought I was a prize for your ego. You were wrong. We were never yours to claim." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You spent years believing you were building your pack on your own strength. You were building it on my mercy. And a foundation built on a woman's hidden love is weaker than sand." She turned, and Alex's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together, a united front. Come, my love, Alex said softly, his words for her but his gaze sweeping over the defeated Liam. Our daughter is waiting. This chapter is closed. They walked away, not looking back, leaving him in the dirt. The packs began to disperse, their murmurs a dull roar of judgment. No one offered him a hand. No one met his eyes. He was nothing. No title, no allies, no pack, and no future. The legacy he had been so desperate to build had evaporated, because he had thrown away the one thing that truly made it strong. Cyria's final words were not just an insult. They were the epitaph for his entire life. The grand hall of the Silvermane citadel was a breathtaking fusion of ancient tradition and vibrant, modern celebration. Instead of torches, soft, magical light glowed from crystalline sconces set into stone walls. The air was filled with the scent of night-blooming flowers and the sound of laughter and music. It was a bonding ceremony unlike any other, symbolizing not just a union of two people, but the dawn of a new era for their packs. Cyria stood before a floor-to-ceiling window watching the guests arrive. She wore a gown that was both armor and art, silver white and fluid, with delicate articulated shoulders that echoed a wolf's pauldrons. It was a testament to who she was. A Luna, a warrior, a leader. A warm, solid presence appeared beside her. Alex, looking every bit the powerful alpha in his formal, dark regalia, but his eyes held only softness for her. Nervous? He asked, his voice a quiet rumble. Cyria shook her head, a genuine, effortless smile gracing her lips. No. This feels more right than anything ever has. He offered his arm. Then shall we, my Luna? The ceremony itself was a beautiful hybrid. They spoke the ancient vows under the moon, their voices strong and clear as they pledged their lives and loyalty to one another. But they also exchanged modern vows of their own writing, promises of partnership, respect, and shared leadership that brought tears to the eyes of many in the crowd. The most poignant moment came when the elder presented Leah. The little girl, now officially recognized as Leah Silvermane, beamed with happiness, clutching a small woven circle of silver and red flowers, the symbol of their new united family. She stood proudly between her mother and Alex, who placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, his acceptance and love for her as clear as day. There was no shadow of a past claim. There was only this bright chosen future. Later, as the celebration swirled around them, a mix of traditional wolf dances and contemporary music, Cyria stood with Alex on a terrace, looking out over their thriving united territory. The lights of the modern city twinkled in the distance, but here the ancient forests of their combined lands stood strong and protected. He's gone, you know, Alex said quietly, not needing to say the name. Banished from the territories. His pack has been absorbed by a neutral council. They'll be cared for. Cyria felt no triumph, only a quiet, profound sense of closure. The ghost that had haunted her was finally laid to rest. Good, she said simply. She leaned her head against his shoulder, drawing strength from his steady presence. It's over. Inside they found Leah, tired but happy, being doted on by her grandfather Theron and a fiercely proud Kaelin. The little girl ran to them and Alex swept her up into his arms without a second thought, her head nestling against his shoulder. Time for this future alpha to get to bed, he said, his voice full of affection. Later, in their private chambers, the sounds of the celebration a distant hum, Cyria watched as Alex read a bedtime story to a sleepy Leah. The scene filled her with a warmth so profound it ached. This was the life Liam's betrayal had almost stolen from her. This was the happiness she had fought to reclaim. After Leah was asleep, Alex joined Cyria, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they looked out at the full moon. We did it, she whispered, leaning back into his embrace. We built something he could never understand. We built a family, Alex corrected softly, his lips brushing her temple. And that is the most powerful territory of all. The story concludes not with the defeat of a villain, but with the affirmation of a hero's journey. Cyria had faced betrayal and emerged not just intact but stronger. She had found a love that was a partnership of equals, secured a glorious future for her daughter, and forged a legacy that would stand for generations. The past held no power here. Their happy ending was just the beginning. Thanks so much for listening. Like and subscribe for more interesting stories.